E.T., the extraterrestrial. It's been the biggest hit movie this year. But it's just one example of our continuing fascination with the world of flying saucers. They certainly exist in the movies, and there seems to be evidence that flying saucers are real and have been sighted in Manitoba. These slides were taken in Carmen in 1975. The image blow-ups give you a better look, particularly here where the image seems to double and then returns to a single entity. This doubling is common to many UFOs. This film of a UFO is also from Carmen. Here you see the same image slowed down. The image again briefly doubles, and note particularly the wavy flight path, which is very characteristic of UFOs and seems to show some intent. We'll repeat the same sequence at half speed. Again, notice the flight path. That flash of movement was a second shot of a UFO. Here is the same sequence, much slower. Notice that the blip stops, again seeming to show some intent. This film was taken in Carmen 3 days before the slides by a Winnipeg news photographer, Alan Kerr. The slides were taken by Francis Giesbrecht. Notice that the blip stays quite still, as if readying for movement, then mushrooms at the top and disappears, only to have a new blip appear at the top of the screen. The flash mid-screen is lens flare. Here is the sequence again. These Carmen sightings were never explained, and according to UFO investigator Ed Barker, a significant proportion of sightings are never accounted for.
Out of 100%, let's say, maybe 10%, 5%, 10% are unexplained. Unexplained, remember. I'm not saying that they're bona fide sightings, landings, and we can guarantee this. They are just unexplained. We can't explain them in any known way. They're a big question mark, and of course this is the part that intrigues most people.
Tell me about your work with UFOs. Have you had sightings and landings?
We have had sightings, a lot more sightings than landings, but we have had landing reports which we investigate, and the way we go about that is when we do get the report coming in, we try and get out there as fast as possible, because the weather will mess up landing areas. We'll call them landing areas. We don't know for sure. Wind will blow things away, rain will dissipate radiation, whatever, if there is any radiation. That's one of the things we look for, by the way, is this sort of thing, radiation. The results of the interaction of whatever it was on plant life, changes the chemistry in the soil, all of this sort of thing. Samples are gathered and sent to various places to do this kind of analysis. We don't do it ourselves because it requires a lab, and so we have a number of volunteers who can do this kind of thing, everything from organic to geological examination. So this is one of the things we do. We also try and get as many witnesses, if possible, to the event. It's a very human thing of the UFO phenomena. So essentially, that's it, you know.
Have you got an example of a confirmed landing?
Well, that's the key word, isn't it? Confirmed. We do have several examples. One I'm thinking of took place in Halbstadt several years ago, and we took slides of this. It's a very interesting story because when we got there, it was already a couple of days old, and the RCMP had already come and did their examination and taken casts of 3 impressions in the ground, seemingly associated with this large area of decimated vegetation. It took place in a sugar beet field, and what happened is that whatever it was dried out the sugar beet plants to such an extent, much like a microwave would do. It doesn't change the color, but dries it out, takes all the moisture out, so that when you pick the plant up and you crush it, it's just like dust.
How does the scientific community view these phenomena?
Very skeptically, very warily. The UFO phenomenon is interesting in the sense that it's a large part of it makes sense, but then there is a portion of it that simply does not make sense scientifically, like almost as if it's a red herring. You know, you'll get good data and suddenly something ridiculous, like they'll say, well, we're from Venus or we're from Saturn, and of course that throws it right out the window as far as the scientist is concerned. The evidence looks, if you want to bend your mind a little bit, that this is deliberate on the part of the phenomenon itself. And remember, I'm saying it's a phenomenon, not necessarily that it's extraterrestrials. It almost seems that if it's set up that way so that what it's doing is reaching the general public or the grassroots, changing its belief system, i.e. its myths, its stories, its whatevers, and kind of sliding around close scrutiny. The scientists, general scientists won't touch this, generally won't touch it because of the bizarre stories, because of the bizarre aspect of it. And yet it is definitely having an effect on the general public.
But what pains are you taking to try and prove it scientifically, or can you?
Well, yeah, we're trying. The best thing we can do is statistical so far, is that we gather the information. If it's a landing, we do our best to gather an anomalous situation, something that shouldn't be in the Earth or shouldn't have happened to a plant, try and relate it to one way, try and eliminate any natural possibility that this, you know, happened in a very natural sort of ordinary way. Try to eliminate that. If we can't do that, then we're left with something which eventually, given other factors, might add up to a reason other than a natural, ordinary, run-of-the-mill like bacteria or lightning or tornadoes or whatever.
Will we be seeing things like E.T. here in Manitoba?
I hope so. That's a beautiful story, and it's also a very interesting PR job for our extraterrestrials, if indeed they do exist. Perhaps if you remember, years ago they used to portray extraterrestrials as bug-eyed monsters grabbing poor maidens and taking them into their spaceships for whatever diverse things they had in mind. Now, of course, it's turned around and we have people like E.T., which totally levels the Bambi of the 80s, if you like. And this whole PR thing has been changed.
Do you believe in ETs?
Yes, I think so. I think that it would be cosmically provincial to think that we're the only life form, intelligent life form in this universe. The universe is an awfully large place. And so, yeah, I would say I believe in ETs. Whether they're able to do what this little fellow is able to do is a totally conjectural. You know, I don't know. But I think there must be other people around. At least I hope so.